I think this book is important because the kinds of politics that we are kind of investigating in the book are still very much at play in the present moment. If you look at the moment, for example, around the current discussion around domestic violence, the kind of national crisis around domestic violence, that is a political problem that is first identified, I suppose, in the 1970s. And activists from the women's movement took steps to kind of try and address that in the public sphere and make claims around recognition of the vulnerabilities of women fleeing violence, for the funding of women's refuges. And yet we're still having these struggles and debates 50 years on. So why is that? And I think our book is an attempt to kind of explain and address that particular problem.
Yeah, and I think these policy debates or political debates that happen now, they often, in our public life, they often have an implicit historical claim built into them. There's often claims about how this debate has unfolded or where we've come from. And we see this not just in relation to kind of domestic and intimate violence, but, campaigns for marriage equality, for example, or same-sex marriage, depended on this incredibly powerful story about the long arc of progress kind of building towards this moment when gays and lesbians would finally be admitted to full national citizenship. I think we call it the marriage bed of the nation. But, and that campaign depended on this story of 50 years of progress ending here. And that's a very powerful story. And I think lots of people felt that story in that moment, really felt it. And it felt very satisfying. But it's just really terrible history. And it doesn't help us to explain that 50 years, which is much more about gains and losses, but also about kind of new identities emerging, new ideas, reworking what that politics should look like. A gay activist in 1973 probably would not recognise a gay activist in 2020. And putting them together on a long arc of progress does not help us understand how we got to 2024 and what's happened before it.